The Fringe Podcast Summer Rewatch, Episode 16.
Hi, my name is Josh Jackson.
This is Lance Reddick.
This is Michael Cerverus.
This is Chris Tilton.
This is John Noble.
This is Jessica Nicole, and you are listening to The Fringe Podcast.
Web hosting for the Fringe Podcast is provided by HostGator. Easy WordPress installation, unlimited domains, unlimited disk space, unlimited bandwidth, and a 99.9% uptime guarantee. On sale now for $6.36 a month. Visit thefringepodcast.com/hosting and start serving up your website from the best hosting company in any universe. Welcome back to the Fringe Podcast, Summer Rewatch Episode 16, as we are just about to wrap up the Summer Rewatch. We have one more episode after tonight, which is great news because that means that we are just around the corner from Season 5 of Fringe. And I was telling somebody at work this week, I think it was somebody at work, I was telling somebody this week that I believe Season 5 will be the best season of Fringe ever. I truly believe that. I'm totally excited for it. Cannot wait for it to start. But I also cannot wait to talk about these episodes of Season 4 tonight. And we're talking about Making Angels, Welcome to Westfield, A Better Human Being, The End of All Things, A Short Story About Love, and Nothing as It Seems. And tonight I am joined by Allan, a.k.a. Zero Fights, and Michelle, and Lou, a.k.a. Old Darth. Hello to all of you.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Michelle, do you have a screen name that I'm forgetting?
I've been using Michelle as Trouble for a while.
Oh, I see there. Michelle is Trouble. That's a little play on your name. I like that.
Yep.
Is there any truth to that?
Of course.
Oh, I thought it was for tribbles. But,
Well, is it like the trouble with tribbles?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, it's
Showing my
good.
age, sorry.
It's good having all of you guys today. We actually have Canada represented and the UK represented, and then Michelle and I are representing the US. So it's a very international podcast we have tonight.
Cool.
All right. Well, we have a couple of things we want to talk about in the way of announcements before we get into all of these episodes. We have 6 episodes tonight, and we have a lot to cover. I don't want it to go too long, so I'm going to cover this quickly. The first thing to announce is that the Season 4 DVDs are now out on Blu-ray and DVD, so you can go get those at your local DVD selling store or on Amazon, as we've mentioned every week. If you get those through Amazon, please go over to thefringepodcast.com and click on our right-hand sidebar where we have the pictures of the DVDs. Then anything that you purchase over there at Amazon will give us a little bit of a commission, and we sure would appreciate that. Allan has put in some of the DVD features, and these are what we talked about a few weeks ago when they first gave us the back cover copy, but they're worth mentioning again. Allan, thanks for putting these in the show notes. And what we have as far as some DVD extras is A World Without Peter, which is insights into how the absence of Peter Bishop impacts the Fringe world. We have a short on The Observers, which is explore how Season 4 goes deeper into the mythology of the mysterious observers. And then they talk about the comic book, and this is actually a really cool deal that they did. It's called Beyond the Comic Book, with an introduction by series star Josh Jackson and executive producers J.H. Wyman and Jeff Pinkner about the inception of the comic book Beyond the Fringe, Peter and the Machine. And we also have a digital comic excerpt from the comic book Beyond the Fringe, Peter and the Machine. And it was really cool. I actually did get to see these, and like when Josh was writing the comic, he kind of went over to them with his ideas, and there were a few cases where they're like, no, let's not talk about that. We're going to cover that in the show. And he didn't know. So some of his ideas that he had for the comic were actually ones that they covered in the show. And so it was kind of cool, the collaboration that they did back and forth on that. So go get the DVDs, check them out. I think you'll really, really enjoy them. 2 other reminders. Actually, one's new news and one is a reminder. Season 5 premiere will be on Monday. Look at me. Friday, September 28th. And, of course, that's here in the U.S. Allan, do you know the premiere date for the UK?
Must be a week or 2 weeks behind that, so not really sure.
Okay. So Friday, September 28th, here in the United States, of course, at 9, 8 Central. And we learned a couple of days ago via Twitter that the series finale will be Friday, February the 1st, 2013. We don't have the details on how the rest of the episodes will break out. We believe there will be 2 small hiatuses somewhere paced in there, but we don't know exactly how that's going to break out. One other thing I forgot to mention talking about the Blu-rays, Allan, you have in here that they are going to release in the UK on September the 24th.
Yep.
All right, so thank you for putting that in there. All right, anything else, guys, you want to talk about before we get into the food for thought?
Not really.
All right, let's do it.
Root beer float. Butterscotch pudding. Mr. Papaya. Fruit cocktail. Coffee yogurt.
All right, we're going to talk about 6 episodes tonight, as I mentioned. The first one is Making Angels. This is the Astrid-centric episode that we had waited for so long. The synopsis, which we get every week from our friends over at fringepedia.net, says Agent Farnsworth arranges her own deception in order to visit Astrid in the Blue Universe and learn about her past. A former MIT professor uses his talents along with borrowed technology to intercede in the lives of those destined for a life of suffering. The observers monitor the entire affair and learn of the failed intervention of one of their own. This was written by Akiva Goldsman and Joel Wyman and Jeff Pinkner, and it was directed by Charles Beeson. All right, so we're going to get the conversation kicked off here with Lou. Take it away.
Alrighty, so this block of episodes is where we get all the character payoffs. So I'm really going to be interested to hear what Allan says about these episodes because he's so much more into the tech. But personally, for myself, I really love these episodes, and in general, I love season 4. I think the whole idea of erasing a character, I've never seen that in a TV series before, and I just thought it was really unique. And I think by the end of the season, there's a really great payoff. So one of the great things is we did get the Astrid episode, and it's a long time coming. And Jessica just really killed it this episode. Yeah. It's probably one of the most emotional episodes to watch for me. Her acting with Alt Astrid meeting the other Astrid and discussing her father was very, very touching. And even the background details that we found out about both Astrid's mother passed away when she was a young girl. I loved Astrid screaming when she saw herself.
Yeah.
There was a vibe with this episode too with Walter and Olivia, and I almost wondered if there was something more than a platonic relationship between the two, but because he was calling her Viper and Mata Hari, and he had all her personal belongings, which I just I don't know.
If you watch the previously on Fringe carefully, he actually said that. He actually implied that he slept with her.
What?
Because Peter was not in the picture. And
that
whole readjustment of the timeline. And then how I can't remember the exact words, but he seems to suggest that he slept with her.
Huh. Yeah. Well, he used the word vagina again, but I didn't take that as an implication that he slept with her.
Because it's meant to be Peter fall right on her vagina. And then on the previously on Fringe, he said that I fell right on her vagina.
I don't think that necessarily means that he slept with her because he also talked about the food in there. I mean, it could just mean that, her being a woman, she has a vagina and her wiles, her feminine wiles, and so he fell right into it.
Okay.
You could be right, though. I'm just
they left it open
another
for
point of
interpretation. I kind of got the vibe a little bit, but they never really followed up on it. So I guess that's just something that they left out there for us to make the final determination on. But I thought that was interesting.
Well, they were definitely flirting with each other.
There was also the great conversation between Olivia and Olivia about talking about Peter and that Olivia realized that she likes the nice guys, which was interesting.
Yeah.
which will be brought up later on.
Yeah. And it was funny. The banter between Walter and Olivia was great as well. And I liked when Walter denied her red vines. That was kind of that was a nice little moment. On the series mythology side, it was interesting that we've sort of seen more episodes where the observers have a lot more tech than I was originally believing. Like we've seen the binoculars and the phone, but this rod with the that was kind of like a divining rod for telling out whether a person's future was going to be. I always assumed that was just an power of observation, but now it seems it's enhanced mechanically, and I'm wondering if this piece of tech is going to play a role in the future. So that will be interesting to see if that comes back. Again, we had the parallels with Neil, the guest actor in this episode, who's the Making Angels. He's a twin, and his brother was killed. But he overheard his mother saying that God took the wrong one, which must that's pretty bad. Even if she didn't mean it, it's still a terrible thing to hear. And it was obvious that it drove him quite a bit to this episode. So they're just a great episode for Astrid. And even though the case of the week wasn't as interesting as other ones, it didn't really matter because I was so invested in just watching Jessica get a chance to show her acting chops, which she did quite well in this episode. Yeah.
By the way, the consensus is in the chat room is that they did sleep together. I'm not. I don't think everyone is on that page, but
I don't know if I agree with that.
Yeah, I'm with you, Michelle.
I didn't even catch that.
Yeah,
that went right over my head. They implied that. I guess it was just so far from my thoughts that I didn't even catch the innuendos.
Well, why would he call her Mata Hari? I mean,
I told you.
Yeah.
So
it could have.
You have to sleep with somebody.
I don't know about that. Oh, no. It's so wrong.
Yeah.
I gotta go watch this again now. I have to go see if I feel like they're implying that.
Yeah, it's not 100%, but if you the overall consensus, I think, is that they did. But anyway, it's not a major thing. I don't guess. All right. Anything else, Lou? Is that it?
That's it. Sorry.
All right, Michelle.
Sorry.
Are you there, Michelle?
Oh, yeah. You're cutting out a little bit. I didn't hear.
Oh, I'm sorry. Anything. Go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, this episode was very enjoyable to see the Astrid, the two sides of Astrid, and to learn more deeply about her past. I really enjoyed that. I think that her performance, I just agree, it was just so good. I do like that in the beginning how, Walter's calling Astrid Astro and Asterix, and yet he calls all Astrid by her name, and she's just like, oh, so you get her name right.
Right.
Like what? There's a quote I really liked from here, and I think and my belief was that this episode was to kind of propel forward the relationship between Peter and Walter, and to, it was like the hump that Walter got over to start accepting Peter into their lives and to get over his, resistance. And that was when, all Astrid told him, wouldn't it be preferable if you chose to believe he was your son? Then you could love him and be happy. It was just so matter of fact. And I just love how deadpan she delivers that. And you're like, yeah, well, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And I really felt it was just kind of a plot device, and it just kind of moved everything forward in the direction of getting Peter back in with the team. And, you see them working together as a team in this episode, but Walter wasn't quite there yet. And then it took Astrid to get him there. And I really like that because that just deepens the relationship that, we've all seen that Walter and Astrid have. Other than that, I don't have much. At first, I remember thinking that Neil had come across this tech like by himself, and I didn't quite, know if he had found the observer tech. But eventually you find out it's just observer tech. But I was like, oh, maybe he's like one of the original, observers or something, but it doesn't look like that. That's all I have.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Alan?
Yeah. So before I begin, um, I was a bit critical with the season 4 in the previous podcast, but after rewatching these 6 episodes, I finally get to understand why they actually make I have this kind of feeling that some of the episodes are not good or some of the episode doesn't serve their purpose.
Okay.
But basically, I found that the whole theme of this season is more on understanding the existence of someone or something,
Yes.
and also the purpose of, and also finding their purpose in on the fringe world,
Okay.
or on their respective lives. So like in Making Angels, we have this guy who's actually looking for his own purpose and finding out that it's probably his purpose to help others, but maybe not really in a good way. And same with in the later episodes where they actually explore more about this case of the weak character and find out what's the reason for their existence.
Yeah.
And also our characters like Peter, Walter, and Olivia, and even Astrid, and even other characters, they find their own niche, or their new, purpose in this readjusted timeline. Um, so we actually see, Walter trying to get over his, you know, his being insane and finding out Peter's existence and trying to fit in again to this world. Same with, Olivia becoming more, confident about herself after, the wreckage when of, Olivia coming to her life and stepping into her shoes, and then Peter finding out his, purpose in this new timeline, as well as, Astrid finding out, there is more than, being her purpose in the team have become more solid when there's actually an alternate Astrid to relay that straight to the audience. Like, we actually didn't see any interaction between Secretary Bishop and alternate Astrid, and that has been, been shown in this episode. And also there's the running theme of the whole show, which, this episode address. Like this guy, I can't remember his name. The former MIT professor. Help me out.
Neil.
Neil Chung. He has a twin, and a lot of these characters got twins as well as doppelganger. So that's a good theme of the show. But what I don't understand is what's the purpose of this episode, because I don't really understand what's the purpose of the time viewing device, because as Lou had brought out, we always think that it's actually some sort of a natural ability of the observers to see time, past, future, and present. But now it seems to say that it's actually the time viewing device that makes them special or make them able to see the circumstances beyond, within past, future, and present. So I don't understand that.
Maybe, Alan, the rod was, it's kind of like concentrator or like a magnifying glass, maybe for it to concentrate on an individual. They use this device to enhance their perceptions. Maybe their perceptions work better with a larger group, or like general trends or something like that. That's just food for thought.
I thought
the weird thing is, September actually lost his time viewing device in 1985.
Right.
So does that mean from 1985 till now, or whenever September got his, device back, he doesn't have the correct perception?
I don't think so. I think the device, the rod thingy, was a total MacGuffin. It had nothing to do with anything. Neil had all those equations on his lake house that now maybe it enhanced his mental capabilities, which he was already very, very smart, but maybe it enhanced him enough to where he could figure those out. But to me, it was the equations that enabled him to see through time, not the device. The device activated. We saw it activate at the airport when the guy walked through that was going to die. But when the guy walked through that wasn't going to die, it didn't do anything. So the only thing that it did was it served as a visual cue to, hey, here's a guy that's going to die. And to me, it was a visual cue for the audience and nothing more. It was the equations that gave him the ability to see through time, and therefore the rod was just a MacGuffin to me. It had no other purpose than to just move the story along. It was a plot device of some sort. And because September can see through time, and we've seen him evidence of that throughout the show. Yeah. So if he hadn't had this device the whole time, it can't have been this device that gave him that ability in the first place.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
So that's my take on it. I was going to mention all that, but since you brought it up, I'll spit it out there. Yeah.
So, also,
Rod
there's
versus
this
Rod.
there are still hanging questions about why the gadget was lost in the first place, or if September did lost the device in the first place. And I'm still thinking what's the grand plan on this? What's the purpose of him, losing this device?
Maybe if he had these devices, they could track him, and he didn't want to be found.
Yeah, possibly. I don't
Just
really
a theory.
know.
It's possible.
It just bothers me. Anyway, so like any time traveling, story, there's always a paradox.
Right.
So I'll just bring out one of them, which is if December and the other observers can actually see the past, present, and future, but why in the first place December actually not realize that September will defy his order?
Are you asking? You want opinions on that?
I think we'll find out in season 5.
I don't think there's an answer for that, because it's a time traveling paradox.
Well, I think my current answer to that question is that they don't have the ability to see their own futures. They only have the ability to see, time that has already, since they're living in a different time. I don't know. I guess you could go two different ways with this. One is they're living in a different time. They're from the future. So all this stuff to them has already happened, and so they can see anything that has already happened. But they are from the future, and so they cannot see their own time.
Right.
Or you could just say they just can't see each other. They can't figure each other out. They don't have the ability to do that.
But it's weird, because December actually don't know until now, or until somewhere in the next few episodes, that Peter actually existed again in this timeline.
Yeah, that seems to be true, and I don't have an answer to that, because you think he could just physically see that Peter's not dead.
I think that just shows that they have limits to their perception. That's all.
Yeah, I think they can't possibly see everything at all at the same time.
And the concept that September didn't listen to his orders, to them, is probably inconceivable.
Yeah. They're like Daleks. They just obey orders.
Also, an important point in this episode is that Peter has been trying to fit into this team by stepping over Walter's responsibility as as being the genius guy who's always doing the work for the Fringe case. So, and then Walter seemingly realizing this, that Peter trying to take over his job, and therefore, and later on, prompted Walter to get out of his lab and join them to the episode of Welcome to the Westfield, in solving this case. So that's it I have in here.
Okay. I'm trying to think if I have anything that you guys haven't already mentioned. And I don't. I had 4 points, but you guys, I spilled out the one already. Everything else you guys covered. So, which Lou is very good at doing. He likes to steal all of my points. I enjoy it. I get to give you a hard time.
Yeah, exactly.
The glyphs in this episode spelled empath, and the clue, there was a sign that said Quimby Ale, and Quimby in the next episode, which is Welcome to Westfield, they end up finding refuge at the end of the episode in a bike shop. That bike shop is located on the corner of Cypress and Quimby. So the Quimby Ale sign was our episode clue.
Wow.
And so that gets us into Welcome to Westfield. The synopsis is Walter joins the field team in response to a commercial aviation disaster and then wanders into a nearby town that doesn't seem to have any way to leave. The general population is either dead or deranged, and the team has to fight their way to sanctuary before the area is effectively erased. Olivia is more comfortable with Peter working beneath her. And this was written by Graham Rowland and J.R. Orsi and directed by David Straighten. And Michelle, you are up first.
All right. Well, I liked this episode as kind of a little, a tale of the week episode. I thought it started out great with like the real, they lose power, and then there's a plane crashing, and it kind of gives you that alien abduction feel going on. You're like, oh, they're losing power, but then the plane comes down, and I just always think about all the plane crashes JJ installs in his shows. I thought that this had a really great beginning. It was like a little mini horror movie. Like, you're stuck in this town, you can't get out, you're driving and driving, you're in the same place. I thought it was just one of my more favorites of this season of, not a mythology episode, but just a one-off. But I don't have a lot except for that this just seems to also be, we get some of these memories seeping back into Olivia's head. And I thought it was surprising that the first time it happens, Peter just kind of brushes it off. She mentioned something about, oh, this is kind of like Edina, that other town that they investigated several seasons back. And he just kind of is like, that's strange. I thought he would be all over that, going, how did you know that? Yeah. What is going on? You couldn't have known that. I thought that was kind of weird that he just kind of brushed it off. And then we see, as the episode moves along, further things, she's demonstrating that there's something going on. She's starting to have these memories. And then she felt like someone else was in her head. So I just thought it was kind of, I don't have a lot else other than that. I feel like it was just, a good little horror story. They solve it in the end. They get out. They save the survivors. But it was just kind of the beginnings of you're starting to see what's going on with Olivia. Something's happening. And then at the end we have the little scene where Olivia completely falls into the old. I don't even know what to call the differences between the two Olivias anymore. I don't know. Is there a name for the old timeline Olivia versus new timeline Olivia?
I just say season 4 Olivia.
I was kind of calling her, in my mind, I was kind of calling her Amber Olivia because of the Amber intro. The new timeline is the Amber timeline because of the color. So, at the end, she completely forgets it. She thinks she's the other Olivia and kisses Peter. And he is just, okay, now something's really going on. There's, and it just is like a lead in for the next episode.
Yeah. We have the suggestion of For Olivia in the chat room. I guess because of season 4.
Ah, For Olivia.
For Olivia. That's not bad. It rolls off the tongue pretty well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Good one.
I've heard Olivia, which is that Peter's Olivia?
Okay.
Maybe versus Olivia. I don't know.
Any of those, I guess.
Distinction. Anyway.
There's only one Olivia Dunham.
That's true. The memories are different, though.
Yeah. Well, there's still Red versus Olivia.
Yeah,
The forgotten Olivia.
Forgotten Olivia. Olivia and Olivia.
There you go. Yeah, and she is forgotten by the end of the season.
Yes.
So, all right, Allan, what do you have for this episode?
All right. I know Daryl is a big Revolution fan.
Yeah.
So you saw this episode. Now you know how the show will end.
Well, the beginning of the episode certainly felt like Revolution, with all the cars dying and their lights going out and plane crashing.
Basically, this is how the Revolution idea was brought up.
Maybe so.
They watched the Welcome to Westfield. I said, "Oh yeah, why not? Let's make a series.
We could do a whole show out of this episode.
It'd be a great show. Yeah."
Yep.
So in the next few episodes of Revolution, you'll expect something about electromagnetism.
Yeah.
For sure.
If I start
and
seeing
some
double
people
pupils,
getting crazy as well, with double faces and something like that.
Double pupils.
Right.
Yep. So anyway, actually that's all I have.
That's it. It's like the shortest Zerofied segment ever.
They brought up this the Mianos place, and I actually went to the Mianos when I was in Boston.
Is that where you and Kenny Carson had dinner?
No, we didn't, because they actually changed the name to something else.
Okay.
So weird, because it's a Fringe thing. I was actually meant to go, eat there, but I didn't end up eating there because they changed the name. So anyway, I think actually there's not much to discuss on this episode.
Yeah.
Except for the fact that we're trying to the writers and the producers are trying to tease us. Hey, the old forgotten Olivia will come back and then probably replace your this new timeline Olivia, and that's it. And then they share the kiss.
Yeah.
Which a lot of the fans will love it. So I guess that's the episode. It's all about.
Well, it is significant in that this is the episode where it started to happen, and it had to start at some point. So this was that episode.
Actually, before this episode, Peter actually had a some sort of is it before this episode or in this episode where Peter demonstrated that the machine clicks onto his hand.
Right.
So at first I thought, by clicking, his hand to that machine, it activated Olivia some way or somehow.
Oh, okay.
But no.
No, that's an interesting idea though. I hadn't picked up on that, but that's not a terrible idea.
In the next few episodes, we'll actually realize that it's a
Cortexiphan. Yeah.
So
yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Lou?
Okay, well, I'm going to seem like I have a one-track mind here, but I love the opening of this episode. It in that typical Fringe fashion. They gave a new meaning to the word blue movie because that opening scene between Peter and Olivia was very blue filtered.
Uh-huh.
And I love the double entendre when Olivia got the call from Peter and she said, "What's up?" and he said, "Me." But maybe I'm reading too much into that line. I don't know. I thought this was a pretty great episode, and I agree with Michelle. I love the opening sequence on the highway. It was a very E.T. kind of feel with the lights going out and all the cars and stuff floating up in the cabin of the truck, and that was really cool stuff. And Walter throwing the hubcap and it sticks to the car. So there was a lot of good stuff there. And somebody, I think it was Cortexiphan 21 mentioned on the last episode that Olivia had made a remark to Peter that he makes a good partner. So already Peter's presence is starting to, it's starting to work its way into the other team members. And in this episode, very very elegantly the fact that Olivia has been receiving cortexiphan injections and that David Robert Jones is testing this device and is weakening the boundaries between the two universes, I think is what, and her empathy, as somebody else mentioned in the chat, all these things are coming together, and she's starting to bleed back to the old Olivia, the seasons 1 through 3 Olivia. So I thought that was really elegantly handled, and there was some minor differences. It was interesting in this episode, Walter mentioned that his blood was O negative, when I'm pretty sure in the previous seasons he was A. Because in season 3, actually, because they found A blood when Peter was killing the shapeshifters, and Walter said he had the same blood type. So I thought, so the universe can be really close, but there still are differences. And somebody mentioned it as well in the chat room. The man with the bloody doll just didn't say anything, but just walks through the scene. That was a really creepy moment, but I love that scene. I thought that was really well done. And the man that they rescue at the police station notices the resemblance between Peter and Walter. I love the double set of teeth. And it was great seeing Peter and Walter working together, triangulating the position of the Eye of the Storm and coming up with the Cypress and Quimby line together. So that was really well done. And then, of course, we had Chekhov's pepper spray, which Peter gave to Walter at the beginning, earlier in the episode, and he got to use it on the bus. Yep. And actually, he got a double use out of it because that guy had 2 faces. But I still can't understand why they kicked that guy off the bus and didn't bring them back with me. That seemed kind of heartless to me. But
I think there was no saving him at that point.
2 faces, you're just done.
Yeah, really.
Saving you.
You're straight. Yeah, but they've seen so many strange things that should just be, a walk in the park for them. So, this is a really, this is where we're really starting to get at the character payoffs. And I know people were really getting impatient with Peter resolving which universe or timeline he was in. And we're starting to get the answers here a little bit. And I just loved how they're starting to awaken Olivia's perceptions to this other timeline. So I thought it was really well done. And it was nice to hear David Robert Jones' name mentioned again. And unfortunately, when you talk about the next set of episodes, if I had one disappointment of season 4, it's kind of the same one I had in season 3 with Sam Weiss, is I don't like how David Robert Jones just fizzled out later on in the season. But I don't like it when they have a bad guy all season and then you find out he's working for somebody else. It's kind of like what happened with the last Batman movie with Bane and Talia al Ghul. So I don't like that kind of setup. Spoiler alert. Yeah, so that movie's been out. If I haven't seen that movie by now,
I haven't even seen that movie, so come on.
So, that last scene, just really well done with between Peter and Olivia. With the, I love the fact that they watch cheesy horror movies on a Friday night. I just think that's awesome. And that's it.
All right.
It's so weird because I actually imagined that way, way, way before this episode air.
You imagined yourself and Peter spending Friday nights together watching cheesy horror movies?
No. That Peter and Olivia are actually watching
Peter and Olivia together.
horror movies.
I see. I wasn't sure where you were going with that.
Well, it's just, sometimes I imagine like what is happening between, Peter, Olivia with Walter, and Peter and Walter in, when there's no episodes. It's just my imagination. Like what else is happening beyond, what the story is going through. So I would actually imagine that, probably in the Friday night they, share popcorn together and watch horror movies while Walter is by himself doing some weird experiments in his lab. So, Okay. And what bothers me in this episode is the fact that the alternate universe never actually mentioned that something in Westfield on their side happened like this or something like that. That actually just bothers me because they're meant to work together, and therefore you would expect Broyles to receive some sort of message or a report from the alternate universe Fringe division that some weird things are occurring on their Westfield.
Yeah, I don't know that it was necessary, though. I mean, I think it's implied that it happened over there, and I don't know what could be gained by getting that confirmation. But
Yeah,
other than to know
it's
that,
sort of
you know.
implied that that happened, but at the same time, there's a possibility that the merging is not between this universe and the parallel universe, but this universe and the old timeline universe.
I see.
No, it was always between us and the red one.
I think you're right. I mean, that's the one they've been crossing back and forth between. So that I never even thought of it being the old timeline, because this is the same place.
That would get too confusing.
Yeah.
People have enough trouble with the old and new timelines as it is.
That's true. Yeah.
I don't know.
All right.
Yeah.
I have a couple of notes. Speaking of, being the same timeline, or Peter being in the right place, there were several Wizard of Oz references in this episode, and I mean, Olivia even said something about it, and one of them mentioned, either she or Peter mentioned something about clicking their heels and going home, and it's a clue that Peter's really where he's supposed to have been all along. Now, thankfully, he wasn't knocked unconscious, and this is a dream like the Wizard of Oz is. But he was home all along, and so this was a kind of a clue that was going to be the case. And then we also got the clue here that, and one of you guys mentioned it, or the chat room mentioned it, that Olivia's ability to empathize with people is what helps her abilities, and so that'll come into play obviously before the end of the season. But this was another little clue that we got there about that, to the significance of that. That's it. You guys have covered everything else once again, which is fine by me. Any other thoughts on Welcome to Westfield?
Yep, just a fun episode.
All right. Let's see. Let me switch my notes back over here. And make sure I'm in the right one. I am. The glyphs in this episode spelled olive, and the clue on the high school, the mascot was the killer bees, and the hive mind will come into play. Bees will finally help Walter understand how this next case is working, and that is for the episode A Better Human Being. The synopsis is: the science team investigates a patient at a mental hospital who appears to be connected to a series of murders. Olivia channels all of the experiences and feelings her counterpart felt and had for Peter. Nina's involvement in the grand scheme begins to reveal itself. This is one where we had several writers on it between the teleplay and all that stuff. We had Robert Chiappetta, Glenn Whitman, Monica Owusu-Breen, and Allison Schapker all got credits for writing the episode, and this was directed by Joe Chappelle. And Allan, you are up first.
I think Allison and Monica will be staying for season 5. I
think you're right.
Is that right?
I think so.
And then Robert and Glenn is actually the science people behind Fringe. So I'm actually surprised that there's like 4 names for this episode, and I'm not really a big fan of this episode, to be honest.
Okay.
I think it's just another storytelling device trying to tease the audience about what's going to happen in the grand scheme of Bell, which is ultimately he's trying to become God or godlike,
right,
by creating better species, like a better human being. And in this episode we have this guy called Sean Keenan, which he has he constantly hear things on his head. So it's some sort like he is some sort like a personification for Walter, who in the first few episodes hearing things and being insane, and probably with too much drugs he probably hear weird things, and something like Sean is actually also hearing voices on his head. and also somehow Olivia, because suffering from um the memories of the old Olivia. So, and yeah, so I guess this guy Sean Keenan is just a personification for Olivia and Walter.
Okay.
And um I think it's in this episode where they again brought up, you know, um Olivia saying that if you look into my eyes, then you'll realize this Olivia Dunham that you love. So that was brought up again. Just by looking in your eyes, you'll actually realize that it's a person you love, or you care, or you know. And that's all I have.
Okay. Lou?
This was I agree with the people in the chat room and Allan saying that in terms of the overarching mythology, this episode didn't push things forward very much, but it did give us a foreshadowing of what the whole Belle scenario was. So,
right.
But I didn't mind that because I thought the character stuff in this was really well done, and I just loved Olivia's journey through this episode. And I also love the fact that this episode just picks up right from the last beat of the previous episode, which they normally don't do. So that was kind of cool. And Olivia's explanation that, when Peter says, "Why did you kiss me?" she says it just felt normal. And, this is what Peter's trying to find. So I just thought that was really well done. I had to laugh when she pulled out the old migraine excuse, though, when Peter volunteered to stay. I thought that was kind of funny. I love seeing Olivia's flashbacks to this episode, the Jacksonville ones, the one back to the pilot.
Yes.
And the scene where she comes into the house, to Peter's house, and starts rhyming off all these old memories, she was just luminous in that scene. And I just thought Anna Torv really killed those scenes and the lines. And I just love the way she says, I remember everything. Like, it's just a very touching moment. And, I guess I am an old softie, but I just love those kind of moments because they feel earned, right? They're not over saccharine, but they just feel honest. And I just really love those kind of moments. I was surprised that as she's gaining her season 1 through 3 memories, that she was losing her season 4 memories. I really thought that the show was going to do a merging of those memories.
Oh, okay.
But it was interesting that I guess this is just maybe Walter's mantra of the universe doesn't understand good or evil; it just understands balance. So I guess this is if you gain something, you have to lose something. So I thought that was an interesting choice, and but it was really well played. And one of my favorite scenes in this episode is when the boy Sean, who's gone off his meds at this point, is sitting with Astrid in I think it's a cafeteria, and all these people are talking around him, and he's telling her that he's hearing the voices now, and the cameras close into them. And by the end of the scene, you're still hearing all these voices, but then they pull back and there's nobody else in the room. And I just thought that was just a really clever and well set up scene. So I enjoyed that quite a bit.
Yeah, me too.
Really well done. And Dr. Frank, I don't know if that was short for Dr. Frankenstein, but
maybe
it was great watching Peter see right through him. I mean, he's kind of grown up with somebody like this, so he was very familiar with what this guy was up to. So that was really well done. And that they've kind of. I like the whole line or the whole eye, looking into your eye symbology, but I think they went to the well a little bit too often. And this is the episode where it was kind of like, okay, we've got this metaphor enough. And I wish they hadn't gone back there. But it was, again, those scenes with them just before Olivia went into the gas station, again, very touching. And for 2 characters that were so... not romantically, slanted at all at the start of the series. To where they are now, it just feels very organic and natural, and so those scenes just work really well for me. And I had to laugh when she had to go to the washroom. I thought that was pretty funny. Yeah, and that's about all I got.
On the DVD extras for season 4, she talks about those moments, Lou, that you were talking about, where she's remembering everything, and we see her smiling, and she talks. not Olivia, Anna talks about how Olivia doesn't really get to smile that often, and she really cherishes those moments that she gets to portray that side of her, because it, she's got so much on her that she doesn't get those joyful moments that often. And it was very refreshing to see that, and you can just imagine as those memories are triggering with her, that flood of memory that comes back. She really does. You said she earned it, and I completely agree. It was awesome. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, Michelle.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much agree with what's already been said. It was a great just character episode in general. I thought that the story about the boy, was just kind of whatever. But all the scenes involved with all of our characters was really well done. And I also agree with Lou about the scene with Astrid. She did such a great job, like being helpful and kind and caring to that to Sean. And I just thought it was very touching and sweet. Just because Astrid is just kind of. To me, I think of her as kind of like the innocent member of the team. She's the one that seems the most childlike and caring and also objective person. And I just really like that scene. And we also get in this episode, I think that Mina, is it Mina or Nina kind of a thing? And I remember being like, which one is this? I don't know. And I never knew. Like, in hindsight, you do know that it was Mina at this point with in that scene with Olivia. But I really thought that was well done, because you just never know which one it is. I also agree that had a good foreshadowing with this Dr. Frank and his God complex, and he's trying to build this better human, and I thought that was really a really well done foreshadow of what is to come. And also, as a shipper, it was a great episode all around, with lots of, Olivia and Peter stuff, and getting closer to where they were and who they are.
Sure.
The only other last thought I have is that, Olivia keeps saying, she's not scared that this is happening. Like, I know this is happening to me, but I'm not scared. I'm like, I would be pretty terrified if I suddenly was flooded with memories of another life and I didn't know who I was. I thought that was just a little strange that she's just so calm about it and collected and I don't know if that's just her trying to be tough in front of everybody, but I don't know. I think I would be scared personally. That's about it.
Yeah, I think I would be scared too, but the way I took it was that it just felt right to her to have all these memories coming back. Mm-hmm. And so, because it felt right, there was no anxiety about it. But, man, I'd be freaked out. I just have one other note I think that hasn't been covered yet, and I've made this note a few times as we've gone through the season, but, it's to me, it's worth bringing up every time, I guess. But, once again, we see at the very end of the episode, Peter and Olivia get back together. They looked into each other's eyes and it felt right. And so they kissed. They're sure it's the right thing to do. And then she's kidnapped just like that. And, they get us right into
get her and then she's taken away.
Exactly. And then that gets right into the next episode where, by the end of this next episode, Peter's convinced she's not the right one again, and so they're all apart again. And it's just continued, It
is so frustrating and annoying.
Yeah, maybe so. I think all my other notes got covered there along the way. So that's all I have. You guys have anything else on A Better Human Being?
I just hope that Olivia got to go to the washroom before she got kidnapped.
That's funny. I guess I'll say, too, that I guess really starting with Welcome to Westfield, the season does kind of dip in, start to make that turn into what will be the final story arc of the season. And we don't really know it at this point. We didn't really see the importance of what DRJ was doing with the Amphilicite and Welcome to Westfield. Here we have the God complex, and we don't really fully understand what that is, but in hindsight, now that we know how the season ends and what all these things are set up to mean, we are really turning the corner into this, what will be the theme and the events of the final portion of the season here. All right, let's see. The glyphs spelled, let me scroll back up here, Henry, and which had nothing to do with this episode, will come into play in the next episode. I looked everywhere, and I could not figure out what the episode clue was for this episode. But the next episode is The End of All Things, and the synopsis is Nina and Olivia face torture at the hands of David Robert Jones. Peter and the science team treat the injured observer before he is snatched from the current timeline by his colleagues. Peter shares a synaptic interface. Boy, try saying that. Peter shares I still can't do it. Peter shares a synaptic interface with the observer and learns what he is ultimately destined to do. And this was written by David Fury and directed by Jeff Hunt. And Lou, it's back up to you.
Alrighty. Well, there's a lot in this episode, and for me, David Fury redeemed himself because I was not a big fan of his first episode. I think it was the third one about the fungus with
That's
Gus.
right.
I think that's
Alone
the
in the
weakest
World.
episode of the season.
Yeah.
But this one is pretty good, and as Michelle mentioned, we don't really know which Nina we're dealing with in any particular scene until it's revealed later on in the episode. So I thought that was really well played. The shot of the observers outside the that hockey rink, I'm assuming that roof over it was added in post-production because it kind of looked like one of the domes from the season 4 promo shots. So I thought that was an interesting shot. And they make the statement that September is repeatedly protecting Peter. And I hope this is something that's explained in season 5. My off-the-cuff theory for this is that he's a descendant of Peter and Olivia way down the line, but I have nothing to back that up. That's just a gut feeling thing.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Walter is still blaming Peter for Olivia's condition. The concept of the palimpsest was cool, but I don't think it works well with digital chips. So that was kind of interesting. Of course, we've been waiting for a big observer moment, and we got it in this episode when September shows up wounded. Yep. And he's telling Peter that she needs you. And Daryl, you said in one of the other episodes you were wondering who Mr. X was, and to me it was, especially this episode, to me the answer was September. But because really his interference right back in the lab is what set everything in motion. So whether it's directly or indirectly, he's kind of responsible for what's happening to Olivia in this arc as well. So I thought that was interesting. It was cool seeing Peter inside the observer's mind, and I liked the fact that they had Peter in a blue shirt, which I thought was a nice touch. But Fringe does that all the time, so that was kind of cool. We found out that the observers are from the future, and that they're, or from one possible future, and that they're scientists. Yep. Which is, I think a lot of us had sort of already made guesses along those lines. So it was nice to get them given to us. And one of the hallmarks of Fringe is, and people still don't agree maybe, but I think they do answer the important questions. But of course they raise new ones all the time. But I just think they do a really good job of it. And it was really great to hear this stuff about the observers. So, then probably my favorite moment in the episode, though, is they've been trying to get Olivia activated with Nina and that, and it's not working. But boy, when Peter shows up, that light board just goes off like a supernova. So that was and that's a beautiful way to show the depth of feeling for somebody, which you normally can't do. So I just thought that was a very clever piece of symbology. And of course, then that extended beyond that to the lights in the control room and whatnot. Right. But that's my favorite moment in the episode, when that light board just went like super bright. I just thought that was very, very clever. There's so much other stuff in here, but questioning himself now because of what September has shown him. So he's stepped away. And I thought that, and I think that Olivia caused it, but I think when Peter says he has to go back home and it started to rain, I think that was a callback to the White Tulips episode when it started to snow.
Oh, I like that.
And that's it.
Yeah, I hadn't picked up. I noticed that it did start raining during the middle of their conversation, but I think it's possible. That's a good idea. All right. I think on the skating rink, I think that is part of the roof. And the only reason I say that, and I'm not 100%, some of our Vancouver folks could let us know, but they had the Fringe event a few weeks ago, and I saw a lot of pictures from that because they did a tour of all the shooting locations. And I think one of those pictures I saw was from the skating rink, and I think it had a roof on it, but
yeah,
I'm not sure.
I've actually been there.
Oh, you have?
Okay.
Oh.
It's in Robson Center on Robson Street, downtown Vancouver, and in the wintertime, they turn it into an ice skating rink. And in the summer or whatever, it's something else. I'm not sure. But yeah, it's kind of a little landmark there, and I've seen it in lots of other shows filmed in Vancouver.
Oh, that's cool. Very
Okay,
interesting.
cool.
All right, Michelle, what else do you have there?
So in this episode, I feel like we start to notice more and more this, Lincoln starting to be kind of like, so upset. And I just wrote this down because I thought it was just really funny. Just made me laugh is that Lincoln, him and Peter searching Olivia's apartment, and he's just getting on Peter for, you're doing this to her and all this stuff. And Lincoln says something like, that's impossible. And I just want to be like, really? After all you're starting to see, anything impossible? Nothing's impossible. It's totally possible that this is happening to Olivia. Like, you just can't reject that. Working in the Fringe division, everything's possible. So for him to say that to me is just a funny oxymoron. And then, let's see what else here. The other thing I noticed was, I remember just trying to figure out, which Nina is this,
right?
Which one is she? And when they go to start torturing her to help, to kickstart Olivia, and then they pull down her skin and they start attacking the robot arm. I was like, if you're going to torture somebody, wouldn't you just like cut her and start showing some blood? Like you really know, like I always thought like this was my first clue that this was Mina, because she could just play that as, that hurts, when really maybe it probably doesn't hurt at all.
Right.
And I thought that was maybe even Olivia's like one of her clues to being like, maybe this isn't the Nina I know. So I thought that that was a good little clue to that she wasn't the real Nina. Other than that, most of it's been covered. Yeah.
It makes me wonder too. I mean, Mina would have had to have had her arm seemingly voluntarily removed and this robotic arm put on so that she could fully emulate Nina. And I wondered, did she do that just for the sole purpose of activating Olivia? And if so, then it turned out that their other thing they were doing to activate Olivia, which was to inject her with cortexiphan, ended up backfiring on them and not activating her in a way that would actually cause Nina to give Olivia this sympathetic reaction that they were hoping for. So the whole chopping the arm off was all in vain.
Yeah. Well, she might have needed it at some points, because she was accessing those areas of Master Dynamic.
That's
maybe
right.
She had to, I don't know. But yeah, you're right. I don't know what other purpose she used it for.
Maybe this Nina Sharp actually suffered from cancer, and then she actually needed to chop off her arm.
I suppose that's a possibility, but it seems like I read somewhere, one of the producers, which was probably Joel, because Jeff was hardly ever on Twitter, but it seems like somewhere I saw that he posted that Mina voluntarily had her arm cut off or something.
Oh,
I seem to remember that too, yeah.
Yeah, which is pretty hardcore when you think about it.
That's dedicated to the job.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I guess she was going to be turned into a porcupine later on.
Yeah. All right, Allan, what are your thoughts on this episode? 0?
Yep. Okay, so what actually surprises me and what bothers me is September's comment saying that David Robert Jones' goal is the same. So it seems to imply that whatever plan David Robert Jones have in season 1 is actually the same plan he have right now. So it doesn't really work out in that way because David Robert Jones in season 1 seems to be in cahoots with William Bell. And right now he is actually working with William Bell. So how is that possible? How is it that his goal in season 1 is the same as the goal he have in season 4?
Well, to me, there's two answers to that. One is he's trying to activate Olivia, and that goal is the same. And two, he's trying to impress William Bell. And in season 1, he never made it over to William Bell to impress him, but that was still his goal. And in season 4, he did actually make connection with William Bell, and so now he's serving as William Bell's number 1 henchman. And in his mind, he's probably showing how good he is and trying to impress William Bell for some other goal beyond that. But the kind of the core goals were to activate Olivia and impress William Bell, and I think both of those goals carry forth from season 1 to season 4.
Okay, that makes sense.
Very good,
Daryl. Yeah, again, the same question I have since September trying to fix his problem is why September in the first place go somewhere in the lab of Walternet where he actually cannot be seen and not disturb Walternet.
Yeah. See, that plays into my theory that he's a descendant of them, that he just wanted to see that moment because he knew it was very big in his family's history. But again, that's just my gut feel.
Plus he actually, he disturbed Walternet. He actually saw that the cure was actually becoming blue, and he actually purposely talked to Walternet saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I've disturbed you. I'm like your biggest fan, and I want to see what's happening." Like, why on earth do you do that? Why don't you actually told Walternet, "Hey, you have this cure already. Look at your cure." No, he didn't. He actually purposely disturbed him.
Yeah,
I don't think he knew that he was interrupting at that exact crucial moment. He knew he was close to the moment, but I don't think he knew that he was interrupting the very second that the formula was being created. That was the mistake.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
Yeah. Also, when Peter was on the mind of September, I was wondering whether if Peter and September were actually physically existing on that event itself, or is it just Peter and September seemingly watching like a movie of him seeing things happening? So
I don't know.
Did you get what I'm trying?
Peter's in September's mind, so yeah, it was all images.
Yeah,
he wasn't physically there.
It seems unlikely that they would be able to physically transport somewhere.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah, they've done it a lot in the show before with,
Yeah, that's true.
Olivia and John and their mind together and the LSD thing. Like they seem to have a consciousness to go inside their minds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Also, in this episode, Peter is just an idiot. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
Poor Peter.
So
No sympathy for Peter.
we Fringe fans actually watch the show like crazy. We actually watch every word they say.
Right.
And this character, Peter, no, well, September tried to tell him everything that he has to know. That he is in his right timeline, universe, or whatever place, and he just have to go to literally on his home to actually see Olivia. That's all he's trying to say.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the show, at the end of this episode, Peter said, "No, you're not my Olivia. I have to run away and go back to my home." No, how stupid can you be? Oh my
That was a
God.
frustrating moment.
How do you really feel, Alan? I
don't
wish you
know
would
if-
open up a little
I don't know
bit.
if the writers are actually desperate to have one more episode in this season, which is in the next episode, to actually, just to set up all this thing in order to have the next episode.
Sure.
Yeah, I just think Peter needed to take a step back and process everything that September had told him. So that was a lot to lay on him in that sequence in that chamber. So I don't have any problem with Peter wanting to take a step back and reassess everything and make sure that he's doing the right thing. I thought it was totally within character.
And I can definitely see how he could take that either way. I mean, Peter's trying to get home, and in this case, the Observer did mean literally go home, but I mean, it can have more than one. It can be taken in more than one way.
Yeah.
But he actually, deciphered that in the episode.
But finally, he did. Yeah, you mean when he physically went home? Yeah. I don't know.
It's just stupid.
Well, I don't know.
Peter's having a rough time this season. He's just been getting it left and right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, everyone's having a hard time this season.
Yeah. It's just I feel bad for Peter because everybody piles.
Trying to take over your head. That's
Yeah.
a hard thing to do. And he just have to deal with this girl, and it doesn't really matter if that's the old timeline Olivia or the new timeline Olivia or whatever it is. He actually knew in himself that he is the right Olivia. He's just confusing himself, and
He's
I don't know
overthinking it.
what's the point.
Yeah.
I can't empathize with him.
Well, look what happened to him last season when he made the wrong choice. So he's just afraid of doing that again. And all that stuff the Observer showed him, he had to process it. So I thought it was quite understandable.
Yeah. I think I'm with Lou on this one. Sorry, Zero.
Yeah. Anyway, it's just interesting that they actually made a point that Henry is his son from alternate Olivia, and in the next in the future he is actually having a daughter with Olivia,
Right.
who is Henrietta. So it actually makes a big difference saying that the alternate timeline he actually has a son, which is an illegitimate child. With this timeline, the right one, he actually have a daughter. Yeah, that's all I have.
Okay. Yeah, I was still a little bit confused by what do they call it? Someone in the chat room called it the greenhouse of
Time.
Time. Is that what they called it?
Greenhouse of Time.
I like that. I'm going to start using that. I'm trying to pull up the transcript here, and because I want to get the actual conversation between Peter and the Observer, because some of it is still a little bit confusing to me. I mean, it sounds like the end result was they wanted Peter and Olivia to have Etta, and not Peter and Olivia to have Henry.
Yep. Yep.
Here it is.
There's
Okay.
that whole theory about how it had to be this Olivia because of her Cortexa fan.
Right.
And they had to have a child because full Olivia was not treated with cortexiphen.
That's true, and I think that's got to be it. But he says that to Peter, he says, "You are important. That's why I could not allow you to drown at the bottom of Raiden Lake. Why it was necessary to allow the other Dr. Bishop to cure you instead."
Yep.
And so I guess there was going to be some way for Peter to go ahead and come over to the Blueverse, because I think that Olivia and Peter had to wind up together, not for Olivia and Peter. The Observer goes on to say he was born to the wrong Olivia Dunham due to a series of circumstances that never should have happened. This event would have irrevocably altered everything that was to come. And so he says this, in talking about, well, I'll back up a little bit. He says, this will provide an opportunity for you to put things right. She is the one, the Olivia Dunham from whom your shared future was meant to spring. This must be, and everything will be as it was intended. And so they were supposed to be together, the Blueverse Olivia and Peter. So I can only assume that the Observer intended for Walternate to cure Peter, but there was going to be another event that would have happened that would have brought Peter over to the Blueverse, where he would have eventually ended up with, the intended Olivia. I just don't know what that is. So that's kind of the conclusion I've come to. You guys, is that the way you guys see it too, or do you see something else?
So I think what's happened. Okay, so whatever we saw from season 1 to season 4.
Yeah.
I think the writers are pointing out that whatever we saw from season 1 to season 4 are important and happened, and it's real.
Okay. All right.
So that means that the Observer September disturbing Walternate happened, and then and that cannot be changed. Yeah. So and then September has to save Peter at that time because he has to actually go through all this from all the events of seasons 1 to 3 to actually go into the machine and change the history in order to fix the problem of Henry. So he actually needs to be saved first in order to get into the machine, in order to fix the problem of Henry.
Maybe so. I don't know that it required all of those hoops, but it certainly seems like it did. I mean, I don't know. It's a lot of hoops to go through just to get rid of a baby that doesn't exist yet, but
I understand, but I have a feeling it's just merely a plot, because at the first place September can just, not disturb Walternate, and that's it.
Yeah.
But they didn't do that.
Or point out, hey, while I distracted you, that potion just turned blue over there, like you guys pointed out. But then we wouldn't have the rest of the seasons, I guess.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is the whole thing about Peter not having a baby with Olivia versus Olivia. To me, it was a callback to the episode earlier in the season about the teacher or the professor who in one universe is a professor, in the other one he's a serial killer.
Right.
I just think that this was kind of a parallel story where if Peter had Henry, that would lead to the really bad things. Where if he has a child with Olivia in our universe, she becomes like a great leader in the future. So I think they were doing a callback to there. I don't know if it was clear, but that's kind of the vibe I was getting from it.
Okay, I could go for that. Yeah. Plus, I think, like Michelle said, the cortexiphan not being in Olivia's system is important because we see Etta having the ability to not be read by the observers. We get that in episode 419, which we'll talk about next week, obviously, but that will be significant in, I think, their ability to overcome the observer invasion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. Mr. X, you guys mentioned that. I'm confused by it too. I know that they said on Twitter or an interview somewhere that Bell was Mr. X, but you have Walter killing Olivia, and you have September clearly marked as Mr. X. So it's definitely confusing, and in the end, I don't think it matters.
I think it's because in this new timeline,
Yeah.
they haven't really encountered observers.
True.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's true.
And then that's the main reason, probably, Walter being like, okay, we'll just call him Mr. X then.
Oh, I totally get that, but then, the producers, knowing that the fans are out there calling that guy Mr. X, you should not have allowed that to
how
happen.
they are. They're just pulling your leg.
Well, I don't know about that.
They love screwing with our minds.
Well, that's true. All right. Any other thoughts on the end of all things? Okay.
Nope.
All right. Let's see. The glyphs in this episode spelled unite, and once again could not figure out what the clue was. But the next episode is a short story about love. The synopsis is Peter is ready to abandon Boston and set off for New York, wanting to avoid any influence he may have on Olivia's memory. A serial killer is using his proprietary knowledge of pheromones to lure and kill, all for want of love. The observer finds a way to manipulate events and recontact Peter. This was written by Joel Wyman and Graham Rowland and directed by Joel Wyman. This was his directorial debut, and I believe he has also said he is going to direct the series finale on season 5. All right, let's see. Michelle, you are back up.
Well, this episode I thought was a really important episode of this season.
Yeah.
There a lot could be said about this. The creepy pheromone man was just, I could do without him. I could do without the whole story about him killing these people. But I saw where they were going with it. They needed a creepy villain and to have something to do with love. And so, we got a lot of moving forward with Peter and Olivia, and I thought this was a really, really good episode overall. The villain creeps us out really good, which I think is the intention, and all the innuendos about different love stories going on in this episode was leading up to the ultimate ending that we got, and you get lots of Lincoln Lee, pining for Olivia, and seeing that it was just not meant to be. Lots of long looks and don't want to say too much. It's already been said. I went back and listened to the original podcast on this one because I had to get more in depth on this one. Let's see. The one thing I wanted to bring up was so Peter finds the beacon, the Earth suppository or whatever we call it.
Right.
He's back to his apartment, and Daryl, you had said that you thought that the chip crunch was what activated the beacon, and so I had to go back and watch it again, and I think it does. I don't see any other reason why that thing would have turned on. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know that I do think it was a chip crunch.
Another clue that September's related to the bishops.
Yeah. The frequency of eating chips or junk food turns it on. I don't know.
He knows Walter's likes food.
I'm sorry, did you say you did think it was the chip crunch?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I remember Clint really laughing at me when I said that, and I didn't intend it to be a joke. That's what I really thought.
I went and watched it. I watched it a couple times, and I don't see what else could have activated it. He was standing back, completely befuddled.
Right.
Couldn't get it on. He had a couple things hooked up to it, but I don't think they were doing anything. So I don't know. I think that was it.
I think it's because it's not yet time.
Yeah, I don't know.
It is probably time.
It just came on when the chip crunched.
Maybe September gave him plus or minus half an hour time, like that. Because maybe Peter being an idiot, he wasn't able to find the machine, the gadget immediately.
Here we go again.
Up and he talks to September, I thought was really, it's just so pivotal. He's standing there, and I noticed that he's bathed in blue light on one side and amber light on the other side as he's listening and talking with September. And I just, that moment where it's like, she is your Olivia is just like, yes.
If I was September, I will tell him, you are such an idiot. I already told you in the previous episode, and you actually have to see me again just to tell you that these things. Anyway.
I don't know. I guess he really needed somebody to spell it out for him. He was having a really hard time. He didn't think he was where he was supposed to be.
Yeah, he needed to know for sure.
I also like the scene where he, Walter is really warming up, and he's talking to Peter and says something like, "You're a better man than I," and Peter's like, "Oh, that's funny," and he talks about the Greek saying there. I'm not even going to try to say that Greek sentence.
Oh, come on.
Let's see. The other thing I wanted to bring up was, I don't know, Olivia's decision, sitting down with Nina, and I just thought a really touching scene with them. And I kind of agree. Like, in the end, she decides that it's just better to have loved than lost, and to never have loved at all, kind of a thing, and decides to just go with it. Yeah. And then we're going to lose the relationship between her and Nina. And this whole time, I'm also wondering, well, is anyone else going to start having magical memories come back? Or, I guess it boils down to, what I think is the Cortexiphan, and the only reason why Olivia is able to regain these memories. But just overall, just a really great episode. I think, J.H. Wyman did a great job directing. He gave us a really good villain. He gave us a great, short story about love. And then we got, Peter and Olivia back, and now we can kind of move on. Like, we can kind of get back to fighting David Robert Jones and kind of move on with stuff. And I also thought that a lot of this that was given to us was because they didn't know that they were getting a fifth season. Right. Watching this from week to week last year, I was really like, starting to hear the rumors, it might be canceled. And I was starting to think that they were maybe also trying to give us happy endings in case, just in case they wanted us, to get some of this stuff, these touching scenes between Walter and Peter and Olivia and Astrid and Walter and everybody and Nina, so that we had, the good, happy, at least that stuff was kind of happy. And I don't know what else was maybe to come if we didn't get a fifth season, but now we know we are, so that's great. But I do think that some of this stuff was kind of like throwing it to the fans, just in case they didn't get to come back.
No, I think you're right. All right. Anything else?
No, that's it for me.
All right. Allan, I know you asked you to go last because you didn't like the episode, but that's all right. Go ahead. 0?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. Oh, is it my turn now?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Yeah, okay, fine. Anyway, Peter was forced back to Boston because of the eye thing.
Right.
So, again, I actually didn't see the point of this episode. And it's just that if you take away this episode and you have the previous episode wherein Peter and Olivia ended up together, then we could actually move on to episode 416.
I see. So, go ahead.
And in all honesty, it's just whatever we saw in this episode, we already knew it, with an exception to that, what do you call that? The drilling machine, the beacon.
The beacon. Mm-hmm.
Other than that, there's nothing new. Everything we know about in this episode has been laid out to us. So I don't understand that. It's just that this is one of the episodes that frustrates me because they tried to undo Olivia and Peter in the previous episode and then they try to patch it again in this episode. So there's not even a time where Peter and Olivia was, have at least an episode in between where they try to, be themselves and get together again. That's one thing that frustrates me, that, if you have a TV show like this, you break it and you fix it immediately. It's just, you don't deal with anything. It's just, another you try to lengthen just for the sake of lengthening it.
Yeah. I hear you. As you've been kind of talking, I've been thinking about, well, what are the other things that we got in this episode? We got we got the answer about the beacon. Okay, that was good. We got evidence that September is on a different agenda than the rest of the observers, but I think we already knew that.
Yeah.
We got confirmation that Peter's in the right timeline. But that, I think that you're being a little overly critical on that. I think a lot of us were still a little foggy, along with Peter. Okay. There was reasonable doubt that he was in the wrong timeline or the right timeline.
We couldn't agree if it was universe or timeline.
Right. So this settled that
they left
concretely.
It like that and wanted to keep you confused.
Yeah.
They didn't want you to be able to just guess it right away. So we had to have that level of frustration.
Right.
I guess so.
And I think
also
go ahead.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think that it was significant that it in the mind of Olivia, she had to make a decision. It was important for her to make the decision to embrace these memories that were coming into her brain and not just have it happen to her. I think it was important for her to say, this is the true me. And it's weird. I can't make sense of it, but this is the decision that I'm making. And she is purposefully saying goodbye to the old self and hello to the older self. But, she had to make that decision with Nina. And I think that makes it feel right when it finally does happen. If it just was something that just happened to her and she embraced it, that's one thing. But if it's happening to her and she has a choice to make where she's actively involved in that and not just being quote unquote victimized by it, I think it adds more depth to the relationship. So that at the end of the relationship, or the end of the episode rather, when Peter and Olivia see each other and they run and they embrace and they turn around, we get that great moment. It has much more impact than it did in the front seat of the car the episode prior when they kiss and say, I looked through your eyes. Because whoever said that last time where they had kind of dipped too many times into that well, I think that's right. And so this was more impactful. Now, could they have maybe done it in a different way in the previous episode? Sure, they could have. But I still like the fact that she made the decision to embrace this, and it wasn't just something that happened to her. But I mean, that's just my opinion, and I think yours is I'm not going to invalidate your opinion on that. I think it is a good opinion.
Okay. All right. So the next thing that I want to point out is in the previous episode, September said to Peter, they're coming.
Right.
And it's I don't know if September's actually referring to the bad observers or the two observers that took him, which was revealed in this episode.
I think it was the observers that took him.
I do too.
Okay. So the two observers that took him, are they December and March? Or are they actually the bad observers?
I think it's like December and March. I don't know if it's those two, but I think it's not the observers from the oppressive regime that we're seeing.
Yeah. No.
Okay, because that's just made me, think of there's a possibility that it's actually the bad observers.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, so basically, what I want to try to point out in here is that in this episode, it's directed and written by Joel Wyman.
Right.
In the next episode, it's written by Jeff Pickner. And in this episode and in the next episode, you can actually see a difference in the style of writing. And I don't really like this episode, in all honesty. It's there's a lot of things going on, and it confuses me. And it's just that it's just too much things happening that the elements of the stories are suffering. Like for instance, the perfume guy.
Uh-huh.
His character is not that developed. We actually don't understand why, his face is burnt. And those things frustrates me.
Okay.
And it's just certain aspect of the story has been compromised because there's a lot of stories happening. In comparison to next episode, where the story is more compact and more focused, and it's just a case of the week.
Okay.
Plus, on this episode, there's a lot of things in this episode. Mainly, probably, it's because of the episode itself. It's about love.
Now it comes out.
There it is.
The next episode is more on grounded in like science fiction and science and the case of the week and the experiments and more on mythology. On the short story of love is more on the characters.
Right.
So I don't know if it's the right time to talk about that, because I'm expecting now that the season 5, since it will be Joel Wyman, I'm expecting more like a short story of love thing, where it's mainly about love, mainly about characters, which if that is true, the season 5 will actually frustrates me.
Well, it's interesting.
I think we're covering a lot of love going on in this season.
Yeah.
And I think next season it's going to be very focused on what's going to happen, what's the ultimate, outcome for the universes and observers and all that stuff. I really think that we've kind of covered it.
Mm-hmm.
I
still think that
I'm actually worried. I'm actually worried now, having read some of the interviews, having heard what the producers and even the actors themselves, what is happening or what's going to happen in season 5. Because if you really carefully read on what they're saying, they're actually saying that, it will be about characters, it will be about love, and ultimately love conquers all, and that's it. And it's a love letter to the fans. So it's kind of going to be weird for me because, I think it will be a great thing to serialize it, but at the same time, are we going to be able to see some of the good, characters that actually are going to do some science in it, or are going to do some sci-fi on it, are going to drive the mythology. That's all I'm worried about.
Yeah, but see, shouldn't it be about the characters? I mean, to me, you have the science and you have all this other stuff, but at the core of it, none of that matters if there aren't characters that we care about that are really compelling to tell those stories about science. And so we've always talked about this.
I agree with that, but at the same time, it's Fringe. It's meant to be about Fringe science. It's meant to be, it's not lost, to be honest. So I'm actually expecting more than just about the characters, which I'm actually worried about because it might end up being lost.
I think we're just going to disagree then, just like Clint and I do on Lost, because I think that's great. I think this show has always been about love. We've always talked about that idea of what would you do for love has always been an element of this show from season 1. And so to see that love story continue and to now be a full-on story, a full-on love story, and this episode, I think you're right, Zero, it epitomizes that. So if you don't like that, then you may be disappointed, but man, I loved it.
But I hope their answer is not just love, because I have a feeling that's the answer for everything.
Yeah. I think you and I are just going to disagree then.
Okay. Let's go to the next episode.
Well,
Or
Lou hasn't had his turn yet.
Yeah.
Lou, what do you think about this one?
Or
I
whatever.
this episode? Okay. Well, gee, that's you guys made a tough act for me to follow, but bringing it back to the story of just this episode, I loved the opening scene with Olivia in the restaurant. I thought the white flowers or white tulips on her table in the restaurant being wilted was a very nice touch, a nice bit of symbology. I thought that the Teddy cam used to capture the observers was hilarious. Okay. And you already talked about Walter telling Peter he's a better man than him, so I thought that was a nice moment in the episode. The scene that grossed me out the most was with the scarred man cleaning out the chamber with the
squeegee.
With a squeegee. That was gross.
Yes, it was.
And I know Allan was saying that there was too much in the story, but I think if you read between the lines, it's not really too hard to figure out what happened to that guy. He was obviously in a fire, and it looks like he had a picture of that girlfriend, and I'm assuming that she died in that fire. And the whole reason that he's doing the things that he's doing, he's trying to recapture what he's lost, which is, what Walter did with Peter. So I don't really think that's too hard to figure out. It's there. They don't spell it out as clearly as they did in other episodes, but I quite liked this episode a lot for the character stuff. And you get the complaints sometimes that nothing happened with the mythology in this episode. You have to realize that these are 22 season episodes. Some episodes are going to be filler. That there's no bones about it. But if they can fill it with good character stuff, then I'll take that trade off anytime. And I thought this episode had that. And I'm totally with the chip people. I think that's exactly what activated the beacon. Walter ate chips during that autopsy sequence, and Peter, when he ate the chip, Susie ate the chip, the beacon went off. And I'm really thinking that's because September knows these people so well, and I think it just adds fuel to my fire that he's a descendant of them, that he knows that they like food. So
I like it.
Why not use chip sounds for the activation of a beacon? When Peter went to September's apartment, I noticed they did a linger shot on the calendar, and it said the month of January. Now, I don't know if this is going to be an observer that plays a part in season 5 or not, but that would be interesting if it did. And there's also a shot of a green bowl and saucer, and I don't know if that's going to be something that we're going to revisit in the next season as well. And I liked your point, Daryl, about Olivia actively making the decision to lose her old memories because this version of Olivia that she's gaining is a better version of herself, which is kind of echoes what she went through last season when she thought that Olivia was the better version of herself. So there's a bit of a callback to that as well. The only point that I was kind of disappointed in is that it seemed like her loss of memories was inevitable. So really, it's great that she made the choice, but it was going to happen regardless. I wish they could have played that a little bit different, that there would have been a chance that if she had the choice, she actively, she did actively make the choice, but that she had to make a choice, whereas this just seemed it was going to happen one way or the other. But I did like that she proactively decided that she wanted to embrace this new set of memories. So I thought that was really well done. Yeah. The scene with Olivia and Nina telling her to, try to recover whatever they had together. Yeah, I also found that was very, very touching. And I know at the time, the last shot people thought was really cheesy with the circling camera around Peter and Olivia, but it's just one of those things that with a little bit of time and when you rewatch him a bunch of episodes in a sequence, I just thought it was a really nice touch. I thought it was a nice capper to the whole episode. And I would classify this in a way as a filler episode, but when you fill it with character moments, then I'm all for it. So, and I'm actually surprised that it took Allan until this episode to make this complaint about these episodes, because really all these episodes are really heavy on the character and light on the mythology.
Yeah, and that of course will change with the next episode we're going to talk about in just a second. But I think you're right. Anything else?
That's it. All
right, I've got one other thing, and because we've talked a lot about this, and we're certainly getting long on time here. Very long on time, actually. The music montage on this episode was perfect. It was so good, and that song is "The Friends of Mr. Cairo" by John Evangelos, and man, it's such a good song, perfect fit for the montage they did right there. All right, the glyphs in this episode spelled quill. And the calendar was our clue. You mentioned the calendar. They kind of hung on that for a minute. It had a picture of a porcupine on there. And quill and porcupine will play heavily into the next episode. Nothing as it seems. Olivia's neuropsych evaluation threatens to keep her on the sidelines while Agent Lee and Peter investigate the mysterious aftermath of Virtus Air Flight 718. This is Peter's second exposure to the case, and his foreknowledge sends the Fringe Task Force chasing after a cult determined to manipulate the evolutionary process and mankind's future. This was written by Akiva Goldsman and Jeff Pinkner, as Allan pointed out, and directed by Fred Toye. All right, Allan, you're up first.
Okay, I really love this episode. I think this episode just, turn the tides back to the point of the season.
Okay.
Where it's about David Robert Jones, about what's happening, and is the final scene just validate everything that happened in the previous season actually has a reason that these creatures, this case of the week, are not just case of the week, but they're actually part of the plan, which we ultimately find out that it's, William Bell's plan.
Right.
And I think in this episode, it's already obvious enough that, they're trying to point out that there's someone out there who's going to destroy the world and going to repopulate it with these new creatures. But during the course of the season, obviously, we don't know. We are actually not lost at that time. And I remember you and Clint are discussing where's this ship going,
right,
or if it's moving, or is it going away, going to US, or is it on the alternate universe or something like that. And it's just it was so good because it makes you think what is really happening in this season. And also we have this new occult new cult, which is sort of like a nod to the ZFT, and maybe it's just because we don't have enough time for this season, and that's why they didn't really explore this new set of people who's trying to follow the orders, or sort of the cult of William Bell. And I just want to point out that the spelling of the Uncharted was wrong.
Right.
in the letter that he's writing in the plane. That's all I have.
Yeah, I think it was supposed to be unchartered.
Oh, is it unchartered?
Yeah.
No, I thought it was uncharted.
Yeah, it should have been unchartered. That's why it was misspelled.
Because he actually spelled it with charted.
Oh, okay.
So he actually left out the U.
The U. Okay.
Or something like that. U or N.
Okay. That's it, huh? So you like this episode better than the last one? There's a shocker.
Yep. Yeah, I also think that it was a compact story, so
yeah,
I really enjoyed it because it was focused on the case, and there's still characters on it.
Yeah.
They still develop in it, but it's because we have this about Lincoln getting the tension between Lincoln, Olivia and Peter is still there, so it was a good character development as well.
Okay. All right, Lou.
For me, out of the episodes that we've reviewed, this is the weakest one of the bunch for two main reasons. And the first one has to do with, while I appreciate their attempt to tie in events from the previous tie lines, this is from season 1, episode 13, the transformation, and I like the twist that the plane lands.
Right.
Is that a Lost reference? Maybe not. The biggest problem I have with this episode, and I understand the economics that it was, we can reuse footage from another episode, but this plane has the exact same people on this exact same flight, but it's 3 years later, which problematically is impossible. It just can't happen. So you have to take that one with a big grain of salt, and I can.
But remember that Peter somehow actually affects the time.
But he can't push time back for that many people. His ripples are not that big. I don't believe that at all.
Right.
It's the reason that happened is because they wanted to reuse footage. I mean, if they could have afforded it, I'm sure they would have shot it with different people, but they couldn't have. So that stands out like a big sore thumb for me. But the biggest problem I have with this episode is this whole concept of building a better human being. But I'm sorry, but a flying porcupine does not strike me as a better human being. I don't know who would. I'm old school, I guess. When I think of better human being, I'm thinking like Ricardo Montalban in The Wrath of Khan, but I'm not thinking of flying porcupines.
I'm with you.
So that motivation is never explained, and the people. I mean, sure, there's people that you can manipulate people to do things, but we're talking about the human body here. This doesn't make any sense to me. And that last shot at the end, which is kind of like a Raiders of the Lost Ark shot with all these weird creatures. Mm-hmm. Like, if you showed that to somebody in their right mind, are they going to volunteer to do that to themselves? Right. Like, I just can't buy that whole conceit. So, but I think it's all driven from the fact that they wanted to tie in all the previous events from the other timeline. So those are the two big problems I have with this episode. And you have to, I can swallow the one. The other one I really have a lot of trouble with. But once you get past that, it was really cool how they were able to match footage with the actor that did the transformation, because he didn't look like he aged at all once he actually landed on the ground and was in the customs area with those two officers. So I really enjoyed how they did that. And the whole conceit that, things have switched a little bit and Peter remembers part of it is cool. And he can only remember so much of it. And he says, well, what was the partner's name? If I ask Olivia, she's going to know. So that was a nice touch to Olivia's photographic memory. And which is interesting when we just talked in the previous episodes about how we would be scared if we had different memories coming. And I think she'd be more scared of the memories she was losing, because if she has perfect memory, to lose a memory to her would be totally foreign. So that was something that I wish I had brought up earlier, but that was kind of cool. I love the visit to the bookstore and the flirting with Ed and Olivia. I thought that was well done, and I think Peter and Olivia really played him well to get the answers about the tattoo. My favorite scene in the episode was the Walter commenting on the Olivia, Peter, Astrid banter going on in the lab. Yeah. And sings, he's always longed for family. And this is people in the chat board saying, well, how were the characters in a better place at the end of the season? And I think this is where we see that they are in a better place. They're a much more tightly knit unit than they ever were at any other point in the series. So I really enjoyed that scene. At the same time, I felt sorry for Nerdily. I call Lincoln Lee in this timeline Nerdily. He's ever since Peter's come back into the timeline, I think it was pretty apparent if he hadn't, Lee was going to take his place. So with Peter back in, Lincoln Lee's left out in the cold. And it's interesting. It's nice that they finally get a reference back to David Robert Jones, who for my money, was not in the season enough and left too quickly again. But and there was the reference to the God complex again, and I just loved seeing that scene with everybody in the lab bantering and talking about gods from outer space and all that stuff. I thought that was really well done. So the character stuff was strong, and I appreciated the effort to tie in previous mythology back into this episode, but I thought it was pretty clunky from that aspect.
Okay.
And that's it.
All right. Michelle?
Not a lot extra. Lou covered a lot of my notes, but
sorry,
that's totally fine.
I should go last.
No, I mean, I actually really agree with a lot that you had to say. I remember the first time around watching this episode having a big problem with, okay, it's 3 years later, this is the exact same plane flight. How is that possible? I liked how they did it. I liked how they tied in the story with the Porky Man, and instead of just being some one-off episode of a mutated guy, he is now linked to this this guided evolution of man, this mutation by design that this cult and William Bell is trying to create. So I really liked that tie-in, but I also did have those same problems with the timeline going, I'm not buying all of this, but I liked the attempt at it. I also really enjoyed the ending. I felt like we were kind of getting those little happy moments again with the characters and the character development, the really good scenes in the lab. And I started to feel more and more like, oh, this is going to be canceled. They're giving us this good stuff because this is just going to be canceled, and being a little scared by that stuff. I remember thinking, well, what else are they going to have, in season 5 to develop with these characters if we're getting all the happy endings already. But that's about it. Most of what, you said, I agree with. I also, I was calling the guy with the wings, I call him Gargoyle Man, because he just reminds me of a gargoyle when he's sitting up on the edge of the building about ready to fly, and he's just big and gray with the wings. He just looks like a gargoyle to me. And I also am baffled, like, how is this a better race? How is this a better human? It would be a tough pill to swallow, like signing up for such experiments.
Yeah, it would. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the other point that I'm glad you mentioned that Porcupine Man. Fringe pulled out the old chestnut of one of the characters getting separated from everybody else while they're investigating a house, and I just hate it when they do that. I just think that's really weak writing.
Yeah. So I'm going to fall mostly in agreement with Michelle and Lou. Sorry, Zero. And Zero's kind of beating himself up in the chat room right now, and it's not that we don't like you, Zero. We just don't agree with your opinions, and that doesn't mean your opinions are wrong. I'm sure there's other people out there that share your opinion, and it feels like we're ganging up on you, I'm sure, but I certainly
it's all right.
I don't think we mean to. I don't have anything other to say that hadn't already been said. I love Lou's opinion point that this group is now probably more tightly knit than they were together. They were before, more tightly knit together. Boy, this podcast has gone on too long. They're tighter now than they were before, and that will probably be really important given the task that they are about to face in season 5. So I think that's an important point to reiterate there. All right, that's it. You guys have anything else?
I would just like to add that I found it very interesting that the people that needed to get their memories back the most were Peter and Olivia. Uh-huh. And it's interesting that the other characters, though they haven't got their memories back, they still are in a better place. And just because the season ended the way it did, it doesn't mean that in season 5 that the rest of them might not get their memories back. And I think the title from the first episode of next season is very, very interesting, and I'm wondering what's going to happen with that.
Yeah, it is very interesting.
I don't think they're going to get their memories back.
I'm not saying they will. I'm just saying that title for the first episode is very interesting.
Yeah. Okay, fine.
I agree. I don't think they're going to get memories back either.
Yeah, it's because they don't have cortex effect.
Exactly, it's the cortex.
But they have the transilient slot unifier model too.
That's right. That's right.
Well, maybe there's some new observer tech to help them.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's a very interesting sounding title, that's for sure. And it definitely harkens that type of thought, I guess. But so next week we're going to finish up our summer rewatch of all of 4 seasons of Fringe. It finally comes to an end next week. We'll have everything in its right place: The Consultant, Letters of Transit, Worlds Apart, and then Brave New World Part 1 and Part 2. And it should be a whole lot of fun. And you guys have been troopers tonight. We didn't have the technical issues that we had last week, but just a lot of really great conversation. And I appreciate you guys so much, all the conversation that you guys have had tonight. It's been wonderful. I appreciate it.
It's a blast.
Now, Lou, this is going to be the last time that you join us for the summer rewatch. We might do a round table again at some point. I don't know if we're going to do that or not. But you have your own Fringe podcast, and you've joined us a few times this summer, and it's been a delight every time you've been on. Will you please take a few minutes and tell people how they can find your podcast should they want to hear you on a more regular basis?
Sure. Thank you. That's most kind. If you go over to Fringe TV website, you'll see our podcasts up there. They're called the FBI Fringe Benefits Incorporated Podcast. And they're pretty much the same format as what Daryl's been doing with his podcasts here for the summer rewatch. And I want to thank him for the opportunity to be on. And it's been a blast. And I finally got to meet Allan in conversation. Yay. And Michelle, you were great too. I don't want you to feel left out. But thanks very much.
Well, thanks to all three of you guys. It's been a pleasure. And so as far as sign-offs go, that'll be Lou, then Michelle, and Allan when we do that in just a minute. I want to remind everybody of our contact information. You can follow us on Twitter at GSM Podcasts. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Golden Spiral Media. You can send us emails over at feedback@thefringepodcast.com. And you can call us at area code 304-837-2278. Also remind you guys, we have a new podcast starting. We already have one episode out. It's called The Revolution Podcast by Golden Spiral Media. There are other podcasts out there for the show Revolution, and one of them is called The Revolution Podcast. So make sure you do the Revolution Podcast by Golden Spiral Media if you're looking for ours. And so we have one episode out already. And if you're looking to view the pilot and you're in the U.S., that is already available on Hulu and on NBC.com. So you can check out the pilot for Revolution if you're so inclined. Okay, I think that is it. Guys, thanks again for a wonderful, wonderful podcast tonight. You guys are awesome.
A tip of the Fringe fedora to all the love in the air.
Nice. All right. Is that your sign-off?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'll let you say that again. So I wasn't quite ready for that. I don't have the music queued up here. All right, now it is. So until next time, stay Fringe-tastic.
Tip of the Fringe fedora to all the love in the air.
The truth is out there.
Once again, I had been invalidated.
Yeah, I had my computer muted. I totally failed. Here we go.
Better than being violated.
The Fringe Podcast and Golden Spiral Media are not associated with Bad Robot Productions, Warner Brothers, or Fox. Golden Spiral Media's use of any and all copyrighted material is only for parody, news analysis, critique, and for educational purposes, as provided within United States Code, Title 17, aka Fair Use. Copyright 2012, Golden Spiral Media.